name's Chris.
And I'm Kristie.
This is the Washing Up Podcast.
And that was the grand final of the Great Canadian Baking Show.
Bake Off. We call it Bake Off.
For another year. I was just trying to be respectful and I'm a bit emotional. And just
You're a bit emotional.
It's like the highs of the win to the lows of knowing that's a whole year before we see new bakers.
To the creamy middles of the creme caramel.
Yes, indeed.
Well, we're going to talk about that creme caramel because, let's face it, there's a history there. This was a really good grand final.
It was so sweet and so, I don't know, for me it felt really quick, but there was a lot going on. It just...
most of them were the million steps of the technical, but...
It was a technical framed by two other bakes.
Yeah, it really was. Look, this was... We'd had some conversations, and again, I'm not going to name anybody, but I had some conversations very early on with a former baker, and we were talking about who we believed was going to do what. Mm-hmm. And this was the three that we all sort of named as where we thought there were one or two other bakers that we said were right on the cusp.
Yeah.
But we sort of gave a list of five, and the three that we sort of thought would go through were these three. And the baker that I was talking to in particular said to me that, that Aimee and Steve are amazing and magnificent, but if Vincent nails it and puts it all together, he's got so much technical ability and so much skill. Mm-hmm. It's what we saw.
Look, as the field narrowed, I wasn't, it just felt natural, like a natural progression for these three to end up in the final. I wouldn't have been, but as the field narrowed, I wouldn't have been disappointed from the beginning of anyone else ending up in there.
Anyone could have done it.
Because it was a really high bar set, that first episode. So
the thing is, we talk often about one of the strengths of Canadian and Australian to same extent as well, is the strength of the field. And you're beaten by just better baker on the day, not so much because you couldn't do something. Whereas in the British version, we feel there's a lot of...
Well, more and more in recent years. There's more of a less... How can I put...
Consistency.
Consistency and strength in the bakers coming through. But as we went through, it felt like it's when you read a book and okay, you might know what's going, but you're really enjoying the journey because it's well written and well executed, and the story is engaging, the characters are engaging, and the ending is just so satisfying. That's what this was. I couldn't tell the ending. I couldn't tell you which one of these three would take it out, but to me, the ending was so satisfying, and I think it would have been satisfying no matter which baker took it.
And when we were watching, I could have told you the ending because I had watched it previously to make notes. But still, it was a satisfying ending. And again, it wouldn't, as you said, it wouldn't have mattered which one of the three won it. Mm-hmm. It was going to be a satisfying ending. Now, we're being very nice and we're being very sensible and sane. Don't worry, it's not going to last very long.
No,
it's about to get back to the normal stuff.
Look, I'm going to throw in the word docking because apparently I was getting pulled up for saying felching too often, and that was passé. Now, please do not go and Google docking, particularly on a work computer or other device like that. That would just be a fireable offence. So
we open usually with the talk of obviously Anne's game is strong in terms of their outfit,
or Kyla is dead.
Now, there are two people I need to mention in particular. The first one is Vincent. Mm-hmm. Those pants.
Oh my gosh.
And I say this as somebody who is fond of a plaid pant.
Oh, yes, you are.
I'm currently wearing a plaid pant. Yes. So a Hufflepuff plaid pant as it is. Mm-hmm. But Vincent's pants game, just boom.
And usually that print is reserved for shirts. And whichever designer went, you know what? That will make good pants. Great work.
Vincent,
inspired.
Vincent, send me the name, please. Secondly, we need to talk about, for me, the MVP of this episode, not just in appearance, but in terms of just what they gave to this episode. Alan, take a bow.
Wow.
That suit for a start.
The whole ensemble. It was Alan elevated.
It was John Lennon Imagineer. It was just superb as an outfit. I especially love the shoes. Because it was the formal suit and the formal everything off with the high socks and the basketball ones on. It was incredible.
He was looking mint. Like, it was like vintage, but modern, and it was mint condition, and he looked mint, like he'd been freshly minted, but still like aged. Like, coins do look aged because they have an old-fashioned design. You don't get new designs with new coins.
No.
It's just, well, you do, but you know where I'm going with this.
We know where you're going with this.
You might just make the Queen look a little older if you're in a Commonwealth country where you have to pop the Queen on stuff.
No. I look forward, by the way, to the next series of coins we're going to get, obviously, once, Her Madge shuffles off this mortal coil. Because, of course, as we know...
We know.
But what we know about that is... What happens to Charles's head in terms of direction on the coin?
Does it turn the other way?
Turns the other way.
So it turns to face us?
They alternate.
Oh, okay.
So the monarchs alternate after, so depending on which one. So
but how can you tell it's Charles and not just one of his ancestors? I think they need to make him face straight on because you will know that silhouette straight away.
Just the ears.
The ears.
No, but Disney Corporation.
Oh.
Disney Corporation will sue. Anyway, all right, so let's get into the show.
Is it King Charles or is it Stitch?
Which one of them cares more about the environment? Actually, that's a good question.
That is a good question. I think Stitch and King Charles should totally like pair up to...
I was wondering where you were going with that for a minute.
No, not hook up. Pair up to really bring... Because that would be generational, appeal to the young kiddies, the old boomers, the young boomers.
They could interchange. Charles could appear in some Disney cartoons.
Yeah.
Stitch could go and open some old people's homes in Warwick. Look, there's an interchangeable. Stitch could do a Commonwealth tour. Charles can go plant things in the garden, which is what he wants to do anyway. So anyway, let's move into the episode. We had a fancy mousse tart.
As opposed to just a common garden variety.
Yeah, common garden variety mousse tart. Wait, the words mousse tart gave us great joy. Obviously, because
my only disappointment was that it's Canada and there was no mousse flavored mousse tart. That's
who would have done one?
Jude,
exactly,
because who poops pucks and bleeds maple syrup.
Bleeds maple syrup. She poops hockey pucks. She did make a bison pie.
I know.
Again,
she'd bring out a mousse tart.
A mousse tart.
Can you eat mousse in Canada? Is it more like a kangaroo and emu situation in Australia, which you can eat, particularly kangaroo because they're at plague proportions. But, are the moose protected? Are they more like a koala? Like, we don't have, koala steaks. That's kind of shithouse because they're very endangered or, Oh, guess what I saw today?
What?
So I was driving probably 5 minutes down the road from our place and... it's a known koala habitat down there. And as I'm driving through, there were people who I thought were protesting about the koala, save the koalas down there. And no, they're rescuing a koala. So
this goes alongside the big motorsport race in Australia yesterday was stopped at a really crucial stage about 30 laps from the end. No.
What?
An echidna got on the track.
Oh, no!
And they actually stopped the whole race to get the echidna off the track because they're protected and you can't damage an echidna. So,
wallaby as well today.
Yeah, well, there was also a wallaby on the track. Go look up Bathurst albino wallaby.
What?
There was a white, again, albino with the red eyes wallaby hopping alongside the track as well.
That is not a good sign.
By the way,
if you're looking for signs importance...
That's it. By the way, you can eat mousse. Apparently, it's quite healthy. So, moving on. So, I loved where they got in there, and Alan, goes up to Aimee and goes. By the way, they had 2 hours and 15 minutes. Goes up and goes, we did it. And she goes, and he goes, actually, no, you did it. I didn't do anything. And she goes, no, we did it. And he goes, you're right. We both did it.
Yes.
And that sort of set the tone for a lot of this. And I did notice that Alan was a lot more forward in this episode, and I really enjoyed watching him sort of bounce around. You could tell he was having a blast in there.
Oh, wouldn't you if you looked that good? Oh. Damn. I wish I woke up like that. Woke up like that,
You're woke enough as it is. Anyway.
I'm not woke enough.
So, anyway. Steve borrowed from Stephen in this episode when he said, now the challenge is going to be making it moussey.
See, you should have used actual mousse. Then they couldn't complain.
That would make it the most mousse-like. Now, obviously, there's a lot of... We've talked a lot about this series being the series of, revenge bakes, or the series of, we can bake this better than other people can. For all the different versions of Bake Off. It's almost like the producer sat down and went, what can we get these guys to do that makes them seem so much better than everyone else? Now, the Mousse Cake. Now, we opened the whole of Great Canadian Baking Show with a Mousse Cake of the ages. And poor Pierre.
Oh, this would have been like salt in an old wound.
Again, I don't look. Pierre's a wonderful, wonderful person.
This
and
would
a
be
wonderful human being.
That like that celebrated soccer player who was bombed out in the prime of their career due to a knee injury, going back on the field for a champions what's it called, the greatest of all time kind of parade, and as they're walking out, get hit in the knee just the same way that they did. And
you are a wordsmith. You are a wordsmith.
Look,
so
my smith of words is on vacation. It's that time of year.
Your smith of words is on vacay?
Yeah. It's December. I said, fine, go. What do I need words for? I'm only doing a podcast tonight.
You forgot about that.
I've got this.
You got this?
I'll borrow some old words.
Oh, so
Schnivel wibble, which I presume is old Victorian slang for sneezing in a jelly.
Snibble wibble.
Yeah.
Sneezing in a jelly is a snibble wibble.
Yes.
Have you snibble wibbled? Let us know in the comments.
They might have, because someone might have snibble wibbled in the pavilion.
Yeah, well, especially our first baker, because Aimee made a sweet pea garden tart. Now, we're going to talk a lot about this, Aimee, and we need to let you know, first of all, we love you and respect you dearly. But we're going to have some views during this, and you might want to temper the fact that we are not upset with you.
No. We are fans of your dedication to trying out new and bold flavours.
But the tart was pistachio and strawberry soil.
Great.
Yay. Fantastic.
Yum.
She made some candy melt snails. They looked amazing.
With real snail?
Including the little baby snail at the bottom there. I wish it was a real snail. That would have been better. A sweet pea and mint mousse. Now, Bruno was like, I've never had this combination before.
I mean, the flavours work. I don't eat peas, but I know very well that mint and peas are a big thing, particularly with a lamb roast.
Now, what she decided to do is she used 5 different types of pea in her sadness. I mean mousse.
I'm okay with snow peas.
I'm okay with the snow peas.
I'm okay with pea and ham soup.
Yes, you are.
You don't like pea and ham
No,
soup.
I don't.
That's fair enough. I can sometimes do a wasabi pea. But if you notice the thing with all these things...
Flavouring?
The flavouring. There's a lot of other things like pea and ham soup. You got smoked ham hock in there. Really.
And you
really
don't get the texture of the pea.
Yeah.
Look.
I think it's the pea juice.
Not juice.
Not juice.
Anyway. So Aimee used 5 different types of peas. And I'm like...
I didn't even know there was more than one. Just normal peas and snow peas.
And disappointment.
Yeah. Oh no, there's those ones. There's the sugar snap peas. That's a second one.
Yeah.
There's the ones you give a chance.
It's a second John Lennon reference. You can't tell we've watched Get Back this week, can you?
No.
Anyway, moving on. Vincent.
Ladies and gentlemen, your host for
this evening, the Rolling Stones. Anyway, if you haven't seen Get Back, you don't get that. Yeah. And if you have...
You're laughing.
You're laughing your ass off right now. So, Vincent. Now, Vincent made his Mojito Madness mousse tart.
That sounds like a good Saturday night.
Sounds brilliant. Now, rum and lime mousse, ginger beer jelly.
Yes.
I love the word jelly. It's just a fancy word for jelly, but everything sounds better in French.
And you might snibble wibble into it.
And candy arches over the top of it. Now, I loved when the judges were over there talking about, the flavour of rum and the flavour, and you don't drink a lot, but you do a lot of boozy bakes. And Vincent just looks at them and goes, well, I hope you get drunk today.
Look, it was that attitude that he brought to the pavilion that gave him the edge. They talk about, sports people having to get into the zone. This is a baking zone where you're just booze it. Yes, got it. I don't know, chocolate work it. Yes, got it. It's just it's a bake-off state of mind.
It really is. I mean, even though as when we get to the judging, they said we can taste the alcohol, we just can't taste rum. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I like then they cut back to Vincent at one point and he's drinking the bottle of ginger beer going, it's not alcohol. I promise you it's not beer.
He didn't say you were going to taste rum. He just said you were going to get drunk. Like, he lived up to his promise.
You are actually right. At no point did he say you'll taste the rum.
No, he
just said you'll get drunk.
He said it's a mojito.
Vincent, well done. You lived up to the brief.
Yeah, you could totally Victoria, what's her face this?
Corin Mitchell.
Corin Mitchell this, and just argue the technicalities.
Get through the technicality. Oh, we love a good technicality. We love, again, default, the two sweetest words in the English language. But again, Vincent goes back and he's drinking his ginger beer going, it's not real beer, don't worry about it. Now, I think Vincent is opening up a new portal for future bakers. Now, we are used to seeing bakers use a lot of alcohol.
Yes.
And we are used to seeing bakers drinking cups of tea. I want an open bar. I want a 5.5 hour bake that gives the bakers a solid hour and a half of drinking time in the middle. Because if you want to see a technical, you want to see a baker who's at an hour and a half worth of booze time, who then has to go back and finish the technical.
Oh my gosh.
This is a whole new zone.
It's like, okay, if we can't get it in normal bake-off...
Commonwealth Games.
Because
I know the person who runs the Bake-Off Commonwealth Games. We'll talk to him.
Apparently he's also the Verjies committee, but we'll
talk to him later.
But, if you want... Like, Canada prides itself on its booze. England, they just can't get enough of pubs, can they? Australia, well, we know who consumes the most alcohol in the world.
They really do. That's a fact. And, again, if you look at Australian beer, for example, if you want an example, and people in Canada may not know this, but things like, when they say to an international listener, Foster's, they go, oh, that's an Australian beer. Foster's is export only. Nobody in Australia drinks Foster's. You can't buy Foster's in Australia. It's export only.
Look, having lived down the road from the Foster's brewery growing up, oh my God, the smell of hops. Like, it is both, how can I put it, a beautiful childhood memory, yet it is actually pretty disgusting.
Oh, it's horrible. My father brewed his own beer for a long period of time, and that shed.
I just don't think that Foster's got past the hop stage with their beer.
No, not really. Not really. But again, Australian beer tended to focus, especially in like the 80s and 90s, tended to focus on the alcohol content above everything else and the size. Again, as Monty Python once famously said of American beer when they were doing their Australian Bruce Philosopher sketch,
it's like
we find your beer is like making love in a canoe.
It's fucking close to water.
Exactly. So I think though a technical 5-hour technical with an hour and a half drinking gap in the middle of it, and it's whoever is sober enough to finish the bake.
Ooh.
I want to see it. Set challenges. We need to set hoops up for these people.
Yeah.
Anyway. Speaking of, no segue, I don't really have one. But, far more importantly, we got a song to sing.
Okay.
It puts the lime in the coconut and stir it all up. It put the lime in the coconut
and goes to Mexico for Christmas.
That's the new lyric. I love, and again, the things that get casually dropped in this series. Steve, casually. We just go to Mexico each Christmas.
But how beautiful were his family?
They're lovely.
That's one of the things I loved about this episode with the vignettes with everyone's family at home. When obviously the bakers are in the pavilion and the fams by themselves, and we're just getting introduced to him and his daughters. Oh my God, I want to adopt them. They're so lovely.
I think Steve's got them already, but
and I'm not going to wish ill. I'm just going to say you've got an Australian auntie here.
You've got an Australian auntie who's here to look after you.
Yeah.
And an Australian uncle who's going to take your dad out for a drink. Anyway, so we've got obviously the lime and coconut mousse. So lime and coconut mousse filled with chocolate coconuts, and mango with pineapple curd.
Yum.
And then the mango gelée was going to be one of the layers, and his layers looked incredible. We'll come to that. Now, Aimee had the 2021 mantra. Now, I thought this was really interesting because obviously Bakeries gave us so many hits.
And obviously, I was saying Bako, like Plato, the
Bakerstotle.
Bakerstotle. Well, Aristotle was before Socrates, was it? No, Aristotle came after Socrates.
Why are we worried about the order?
Because there's an order. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay.
Anyway, I'm the historian. I don't care.
Bakerstotle.
So Bakerstotle. So what we got was Aimee's 2021 mantra, when she was trying to craft her gelée peas, and Anne's like, isn't that sore? Isn't that hurting? Aren't you struggling? She goes, my fingers are a bit numb. And she goes, I wouldn't be coping with that. I'd be yelling and screaming. And Aimee just looks and goes, I'm screaming internally a little bit.
Look, we've all learned these skills.
If that doesn't sum up 2021, I don't know what does. I'm screaming internally a little bit.
Look, all I can say is I'm glad I'm not a mind reader, because it would just be really fucking loud with just internal screams in the world, and particularly coming out of the pavilion.
Especially in the grand final. So we got to watch them finish crafting them. They put them in for the blind for the first of all the blind bake. Aimee was a little bit worried about her tart shell. She was worried about the idea that it was a bit flaky and cracking. Steve's looked like it. Again, he went to take it out the first time, needed a little bit more of a bake. Vincent's looked good from moment one.
Yeah.
Watching Aimee do those intricate little patterns again.
I could the snails.
I could quite happily watch Aimee make those intricate patterns all day.
Yeah.
The hero of any of these three bakes, I would quite happily take a sheet of the ginger beer gelée that Vincent was making.
Yum.
I would happily take a sheet of that.
Yep, I'm a fan of ginger, and that would be perfect for an Australian Christmas. Not this year, because it's shithouse La Nina weather, and that's all you're going to hear me say for the next couple of months. Ugh, fucking La Nina, because it's cold and it's wet and it's miserable.
Yeah, look out for that on every podcast. So we then got at the end of the countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we got Alan yelling out aggressively, "Hands off them mousse tarts!"
And I've turned to Chris and go, "You reckon they say that in Canadian strip clubs?"
That's the hands off, no touching rule.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hands off those mousse tarts.
Hands off them mousse tarts, eh?
Yeah.
All right, so the judging. So Vincent, they said that the ginger beer gelée was gorgeous. The mousse held quite well, and he had a very well baked base. And again, you got the turnover, and they scraped it, and sure enough, it's absolute solid. They said they could taste the alcohol, but they couldn't taste the rum. But they did say that the star of that was the ginger beer gelée. Steve, they loved the story behind Steve's bake about going down to Mexico, and the fact that he did the tree.
Yes.
The tree looked really cool too.
The coconuts at the base.
Yep.
I'd like that. A tree with coconuts that already come down pre-filled with your drink. All ready to go. It's like the sandwich pail sandwich tree in Return to Oz.
Yes. Science, get on that. Forget COVID vaccines. Get on to self-filling alcoholic coconuts.
Cure all these, deadly diseases. Just
no, give us some alcoholic coconuts. Anyway, the shell was apparently quite sturdy of the tart. They had very clear layers. You could see those. The mousse had set absolutely perfectly, and the flavour was great. But then Bruno did note that the mango gelée was a little bit too firm.
Oh,
but you can see it was a very solid layer.
This is, you know what I mean? Like, these are just minuscule issues that are going on.
And Aimee, they said that it was very well executed and it was stunning detail, so that's, in other words, an Aimee bake.
Yeah.
They said the crust was very thin and that was a bit crumbly and that was a bit of a problem. However, they did say that the mousse was amazing and that the combination of those flavours was absolutely exquisite. And that was the word Bruno used, was exquisite.
Now, you could argue that, okay, the baked component of Aimee's thing probably put her at the bottom in this technical.
And the signature.
The signature, sorry. But that's really picking at straws. But you're going to be at this point. And I'm really glad to see this is the level of skill we've got in the pavilion.
At this point, it was basically all three of them were sort of, again, and all the way through this, even when we get to the technical here, they were all sitting at about the same point for most of this episode.
Yep.
It was really going to be whoever nailed that showstopper. So we get the technical. Now, before the technical, we do get one of my favourite lines to send them off, which was, "Judges, go frolic in the fields."
Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to bake our fields.
Nothing is real.
Kyler and Bruno are skipping there.
Bake our fields forever. So, I just love this idea of them frolicking. Like, can you imagine Bruno in a frolic?
Yes, I could.
But this is the thing. Can you imagine Bruno in a frolic? Like, how many Michelin star winning, accredited world-class pastry chefs do you know who frolic. Maybe 3.
Look, Kyla for sure, when she's out, like, you know, patisserie shopping in London, just walking past all these gorgeous stores, has obviously got, like, this beautiful frolicking outfit.
Yeah, but she's ready for Carnaby Street.
And a frolicking basket, yeah, and a frolicking basket, and she's just frolicking about, grabbing patisseries. And I think that's what they were doing outside. She's like, Bruno, let's just pretend we're going down to, like, Paris, and we're going to get deliciousness, and we're going to frolic for it. Because you don't go foraging for patisserie, do you? You go frolicking.
Who would be the other world-class pastry chefs who would frolic?
You'd probably find
because I'm racking my brain. I feel like, and not just pastry chefs, it can be any kind of world-class chef. Ramsay doesn't frolic. There's no way you get a frolicking Ramsay. Heston doesn't really know what a frolic is, but he bets he can build a restaurant around it.
No, he will just bring you the essence of frolic.
Nancy Silverton does not frolic at all. She's very stern. She's wonderful and amazing. There's no frolic there. You know who does frolic?
Kirsten Tibbles.
Kirsten Tibbles frolics, but you know who definitely frolics?
Who?
Massimo Bottura.
Oh, he is number one frolicker.
Massimo Bottura skips through the fields throwing cheese.
Frolicking.
Throwing cheese.
Yep.
Just skips through the fields. Parmesan Reggiano, just everywhere. Off he goes, just left and right. Just, you know, again, and then it gets to the end, and that's where he goes, oops, I dropped the lemon tart. And again, that's the end of the frolic.
Yes.
Massimo's probably the only other one I can think of that might frolic. Tibbles might have a little bit of a frolic, but not a lot.
No. She would just have a cheeky frolic.
Cheeky frolic.
Yes. A cheeky frolic just in the Melbourne laneways before she went off and was serious about chocolate.
But I think that Kyla and Bruno are probably the only two where you could say, go have a frolic. And they would.
Yep.
Like, Bruno 100% would.
Mm-hmm. Maggie Beer would, if the occasion arose, and there were people, like if Bruno and Kyla went past Pheasant Farm and...
Stately Beer Manor,
sorry. But pop past Stately Beer Manor, they'd go frolicking through the Verjies fields.
Well, you can't walk through the Verjies fields.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before. There is a requirement that you frolic.
When Kyla is invited along to the International Committee for Butter Hoarding, which consists of Maggie and Bruno.
Yeah, exactly. When Kyla is initiated into their secret society, there is a frolic required because you've got to go through the Verjies fields to get there. Mm-hmm. So I think they're probably the only ones you can think of. And I mean, I've seen this man make very, very bizarre noises. He would definitely frolic. Mm-hmm. He would be a complete frolicker.
Yes.
I feel maybe it's the... Okay. Is it an inverse relationship to how much butter you use?
Possibly. Or dairy products in general.
Dairy in general?
Like... Okay, so Massimo's is more fromage
based, yes.
Whereas Maggie and Bruno's is more butter based.
Now,
Kyla, I think, would go both ways.
She's got a range of frolicking that she can do. My last question for you before we move past the word frolic. Nigella Lawson. Now, I'm thinking...
Yeah.
Now go with me on this because I think you know where I'm going.
Okay.
I think modern... Nigella, no frolicking.
No.
I'm thinking married to Charles Saatchi. Nigella,
possibly frolicking,
possibly under an influence.
I think she'd Fosse frolic. It would be a frolic, but more based in Fosse choreography. Again,
I know there are people listening to this who get the Fosse frolic idea, and what do you reckon? Do you think Nigella Lawson Fosse frolics through a field? Anyway, there's a question I never thought of. For fromage. There's a question I never thought of. Anyway, we haven't even said what the technical is because we got stuck on the word frolic in the fields. Mm-hmm. So, Delise à limon.
Mm-hmm.
I've butchered the hell out of that. I don't care. 2 hours 45 minutes. It's basically little lemon cakes.
These were reminiscent to me of some of the princess cakes, the Princess Fiona booby cakes.
Yep.
But they're yellow, so I'm presuming it's I can't say Tweety Bird titties.
Hang on. Whoa. Pause. Hold I can't say Tweety Bird titties, and yet you just did.
Well, I was trying to think of a yellow cartoon character that had boobs, I'm thinking boobs, breasts. Birds have breasts, technically, like the breasts. That you don't go robin red chest, you go robin red breast. You don't go, I'll have some of that delicious chest of a chicken Although that would be great alliteration. You get the breast of a chicken. So...
chest of a chicken
but
with
it's
chestnuts.
really interesting. Why do they call it a breast? They don't like suckle their young. Like beaks are not made for suckling. Not even with this attitude.
You're having a lot of deep cuts tonight. Anyway,
I'm sorry. Get us back on track. Where are we at? Technical.
Now,
with dome mold.
After they announced it, so they went around and my favourite was Steve when they went, we eat this every other Sunday in May, and then we eat it all the way through June. And Anne's like, really? He's like, no, I've never heard of this. So what I liked about this was there were 4 major components that you needed to nail. So you had lemon pastry cream, lemon curd, lemon whipped cream, and the limoncello syrup. They were the 4 major components around the cake itself. So you had the cake with a little bit of lemon zest. Then you had to soak it in limoncello. Then you had to make this cream. You had to get the cakes, first of all, baked. Then you have to cool them down. Then you've got to put the cream inside them. And the idea is to fill them without bursting the bottom of them, which Steve did brilliantly initially. So bang, blew up. He's like, oh, well. And then when he went to pick the first one, I'm like, poor Steve, every time Steve picked one up, more cake just came out in his hand. He's like, I'm taking half the cake with me. We need to talk about, before we get into what they did in this bake, and most of the conversation in this is going to be lack of instruction. We need to talk about Bruno. And we need to talk about... So Kyla's talking about that tartness and the feeling of tartness. And Kyla looks perfectly normal as she bites in and eats this lemon cake. They cut to Bruno. And all I could think of was the Simpsons episode Lemon of Troy. Yeah, where they bite into the lemon like it's an apple and just... Ooh, and the face scrunches up. Bruno had perfect scrunch-up face.
Yes.
Like...
He was the old man telling the kids the story of the lemon tree from Springwood.
And they got rid of it because it was haunted. Let's all sit back with a nice, cool, refreshing glass of turnip juice. So, in this bake, there was actually a pressure point on the cake itself. So there's no raising agent.
Yeah, it's all aeration.
Yep, so you needed to keep the cake aerated. Now... You could see that Steve and you could see that Aimee had a very aerated and batter and now you shouldn't really overmix this because if you overmix it, you won't get that level. It'll be a bit more dense than what you expect. Cut to Vincent, who has a half the mixture of everybody else because he's whipping the hell out of it. And you're like, that's a tight batter. That's a very tight. There's no air in that one. Instructions. What instructions?
There was make a sponge. There was cook it.
There was no baking time.
No baking time. Make a curd.
There was no limoncello measurements.
No. Surely it's enough for the bacon, enough for a nice little tipple for yourself.
As Steve pointed out, we're in Italy. We're drinking. And now, it was interesting, because remember last week, of course, with the Bubba rum?
Yes, I think this is what gave them the hint for how much to use this week.
Except the interesting part was that Vincent was the one who used all of it. He's like, all of it, in it goes.
He's like, I'm not going to unbooze this.
And then their Steve's like, yay, in it goes. They learned from the Bubba rum last week, where it was like, they all put a little bit in, and Bruno's like, there shouldn't be anything left in that jar, maybe a dash, that's about it. Everything needs to be in there. And especially after the first bake with Vincent where they said they could taste the alcohol but no rum. It's really go heavy on the limoncello because you need to get that punch in there. Freeze for a significant amount of time.
And I think Aimee described it perfectly when Anne asked, well, what does a significant amount of time mean? She's like, well, as long as you got to spare.
I thought that is the best answer I've heard to one of those hypotheticals ever.
Yeah.
I thought, Amy's measurement of that was on the ball. I think it means as long as you can possibly manage.
Yeah, without, carving into dressing time. Yeah,
exactly. But I thought that it's really interesting, obviously, when you get those sorts of instructions in a significant amount of time. I would have thought there might have been some bakers for whom that might have caused an existential crisis.
Yes, now there's a lot of layers of lemon in this, which begs the question, who on the Amalfi Coast went, I've got all these fucking lemons, what am I going to do with it? And just, what can I put lemons into?
I mean, I have the answer, but I don't want to talk about it too much because I think that Tanner's relatives will come after us. And, I feel like this amount of produce is a combined effort.
Yeah,
so they came from the Amalfi Coast.
Pirate Princess.
Yeah, so they came from the Amalfi Coast. So obviously, I think there's a Tanner family connection.
Yep.
Don't want to say too much more, Tanner. We respect you and your family, and we would not like to find a horse's head anywhere in our house. And obviously the Fruit Pirate Princess, from last season.
Yep, smuggling lemons wherever she can.
Obviously, and by the way, thanks, Martha, because I got a message from her the other day. Actually,
yeah.
We were her most listened to podcast on Spotify.
Oh.
So thank you, by the way. A few people mentioned that. Thank you, by the way, for the Spotify list where you mentioned that we were your most listened to podcast. Really appreciate that. It's always lovely when it happens. We weren't at my most famous, my most listened to podcast on Spotify. One, I don't listen to podcasts on Spotify really, and two, I've got the raw files, so I don't need to. But thank you, everyone, again, for those people who did. But I think it's a combination of those two people smuggling this in. And I wonder if there was pressure. I wonder if the lemon industry got involved.
Yes. We won't say thugs. It's reserved for the scallop industry.
Legitimate businessmen.
People.
No, it's businessmen. Trust me on this.
Okay, from the Amalfi Coast with their lemons. And wanting to share it with the world. This beautiful produce with the world.
As Bruno went to great pains to say, without a gun in his back at all, the greatest lemons on earth. He said that without any pressure whatsoever. Tanner, thank you. Please don't kill us. Anyway, moving on. moving right along. Because we also then got the glaze, and what I loved about the glaze was the instruction, which was put enough milk in it to make it a glaze. That was the most vague out of all of them. Mm-hmm. And then they went, well, what level would that be? And I think it was Steve, but I can't quite remember who said, well, obviously enough to pour. It was already enough to pour before you put the milk in there. Yes,
but it obviously needed it. And I loved this because this whole this whole episode for me felt like they were creating space and challenging the bakers to think for themselves, like challenging their critical thinking skills, to show that, we don't need to tell you anything really from day dot with a technical, but here's even less information.
Exactly. And it's one of those things too, and we always talk about it with the podcast as well, is that for us, the podcasts in the middle of the series, to pull back the curtain a little bit, the podcasts in the middle of the series tend to be the most upbeat and fun. Because there's so much weird and wacky chaos going on.
Yeah.
Right? And not in a bad way that people... There's a lot. In a grand final, there's not much because people are not really straying a huge amount from the path because it's the grand final.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus, there's a lot of intention, and so...
We actually tend to do a lot more actual analysis in a grand final episode because it demands it, really.
Yeah. And we don't have, because of COVID, we don't have, family commentary to bring in.
We'll come to some commentary. There was some commentary. We'll get to her.
Or comparison of of what Canada puts on for their attendees versus Australia.
By the way, take a shot every time I say we'll get to that later.
And I think if we actually do get to that later.
Yeah, take a double shot if we do get to that later. Yeah. But every time I say get to that later in this episode, take a shot. Now, the judging. Vincent. Now, the piping is consistent. Very nice glaze shine. But they said there was no filling inside. Now, obviously, he did fill them. What happened was that tight mixture just absorbed it all. Mm-hmm. They said they weren't hit with the aroma, but the flavour sort of punched him in the face. And they said the flavour was still there. So all the cream and all that mixture was still there. It just got absorbed into the cake.
I wouldn't expect lemons from the Amalfi Coast shipped over by...
the Fruit Pirate Princess from Tanner's family
would punch you in the face at all.
No, they gently caress you.
Yeah,
in a aggressive way. Anyway, Aimee,
in a firm and meaningful way.
Exactly, very firm, very meaningful. How good are lemons?
Lemons are great.
Lemons are amazing.
It's something I hate. Okay, this is my bugbear, right? So yesterday we went and spread some of Mum's ashes, and it was really lovely and really beautiful. And my stepdad's like, let's go for fish and chips afterwards. And we're like, okay, so we did. These days when you go to a fucking fish and chip shop, they don't give you enough lemon. Like, I ordered calamari and chips, right? And usually you get your tartare sauce and a wedge of lemon with it. I didn't even get a wedge of lemon. Like, they've gone to that extent. They're not even giving you the lemon. Like, they were giving you tiny, like, Like, lemons aren't that expensive.
You know where you can get really good lemons from?
The Amalfi Coast.
The Amalfi Coast.
Look, Mahathi, can you just hook up all the fish shops in Australia with some lemon? Because I don't know what's going on, but they're just really stingy with the lemons. Okay, let's move on.
So, Aimee, they said that the shape of her cakes were quite good. The glaze was a little bit thick. They did say they were very well filled, and the sponge was like a cloud.
Oh, yum.
Steve, they said there were a few handling issues in the glaze. The piping was a bit inconsistent and rushed. The cake wasn't so stable to hold the filling, and it basically fell apart. But good flavour.
Good flavour.
And I love the way they did that. No. Flavour's good.
It was an Amalfi mess.
So Steve achieved his wish. Steve had said after the first bake, of course, I hope I come top 3 in the technical. And so Steve came third. So well done, Steve, achieving goals. Vincent was second and Aimee was first. So we get to the showstopper. The Baking Journey Cake, which is 4.5 hours. Now,
yes,
there are 2 schools of thought on this. One is that that's a very vague title, which doesn't really give a lot away and doesn't give you a lot of structure. And you kind of sometimes might want a bit more structure in a grand final showstopper to really channel their energies to make something great.
Yep.
The other way to look at it, it's an open brief at the end of an entire competition.
And it's asking them to do all of the skills that they've been asked to put to the test in every single showstopper, whether it's, it's decoration, or it's making it big, or it's using up all your time, or it's using some, high skills.
Or adding flavours that you missed out on.
Adding flavours, and time management, and, components, and all this kind of thing. And it's basically the onus is being put back on the bakers to create that and show and to share their story.
Show us what you learned. It's basically what it is.
Yes.
Now, look, I was very firmly in the first camp the first time I watched it. And you sort of talked me around a bit on the second one when I watched it the second time. And I was like, no, I get it. I get it. And look, I like a bit more focus in those. But rewatching it a second time, I was fine with it. I didn't have a problem with it.
I think it elevates what you expect out of a grand final.
Yep.
Because usually, say, British, for example, they might give it a theme like a picnic fit for a queen, and they're very specific about what they want to see in there. So it gives, it prescribes a lot, and there's not as much critical thinking that goes into it. Well, there is, but not as much as just giving a brief, which is what I presume you get as a cake maker. You could just get some, if you're going to pure artistry, because as a cake maker, I presume you get someone going, it's a birthday cake and I want Thomas the Tank Engine, but he doesn't like chocolate and he's allergic to strawberries. So can you do something that's not caramel?
We want Thomas the Tank Engine, but we want him playing goalie for the Montreal Canadiens, and we want him saving the puck in Game 6 to force it to overtime, but we don't want Thomas's Canadiens to win the cup. We want them to lose. Very specific like that.
And can you make him riding a moose?
A moose, exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. That's
a full-size moose, but not a full-size Thomas.
No. Well, the Thomas needs to be small.
Yes.
The moose, regular size.
Yes.
Right. The goals, really big. So... Anyway, the Baking Journey Cake I liked. Now, I thought it was also interesting to see who applied the brief. The brief...
It's an abstract art thing.
It was. Look,
this was left up to the artist to interpret.
It was. I agree with you. It was left up to the artist to interpret. Some interpretations were far more broad than others. I'm not saying they were wrong at no point.
And some were more literal, like Stevens... I literally started with cookies. So the bottom layer is a cookie. And the second cake I make is a chocolate cake. And then it ends in a French patisserie.
Aimee's was turtle themed. Now...
Is she under the spell of an enchanted turtle?
Did she go and see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze... No, not the first one.
No.
The second one.
With
the Super Shredder. Super Shredder, of course, played by former professional wrestler Kevin Nash. Anyway, that's a random fact that nobody needed in their life. And again, the turtle rap. But did she see...
Ninja rap.
yes, go ninja, go. But did she see that movie and fall under the spell of like Master Splinter and feel like she is one of the turtles?
Like just perpetually just like channeling turtles.
Yeah, I mean...
Is she haunted by a turtle? Is there a ghost turtle? Because like they always talk about like ghost humans.
Ghost turtles are chasing her?
Ghost turtles are chasing her. You know?
How? I mean, in
trying to get her to join forces with King Charles and
in Quebec
to bring awareness to the plight of the earth and to
in Quebec, how common are turtles?
Encourage people
in Quebec. How common are turtles?
I don't know the environment.
I don't know how common turtles are, but
turtles are very common
in Quebec.
They're common everywhere. Like you drive.
I don't know. I mean, the Kalahari might be a bit devoid of turtle life.
I reckon you'd be surprised because there's that desert that has those crocodiles that got stuck there that live in little mud ponds. I swear blind. They're these desert crocodiles.
I know the random desert crocodiles. I mean, and haunted turtles can go wherever they want.
Exactly.
I mean, that is the thing.
Space and time through dimensions.
Just quickly on turtles for a minute, because we did mention, of course, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. But my favourite moment in any Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie is in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1. And it's the moment where Raphael bumps into Casey Jones for the first time.
Oh, God.
And it's the fight scene. Mm-hmm. And the reason was, as a young Australian boy sitting and watching this movie, when Casey Jones references cricket and produces a cricket bat, and you get the line from Raphael, "Cricket? Nobody understands cricket. You got to know what a crumpet is to understand cricket." He's like, "Yeah, well, I'll teach you." And he hits him and he goes, "See? That's 6 runs." And I went nuts in the movie. Forget this fight scenes. Yeah. Forget any of the Hamato Yoshi or Rokusaki stuff. Forget any of that stuff. What did I mark out for? Cricket references. That was what I went crazy for.
I'm happy for you, my love. Just really happy for you.
So when I go on a rant, you just hang me out to dry, but you go on a rant, and I'm going to come with you on the journey. Anyway. What
do I add to that? I hate cricket.
I know, but you might like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Or are you more of a fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2? The Secret of the Ooze. Anyway, so let's get into this. So it was a chocolate cake with berry compote, and a spice cake with a plum compote, and nothing.
A plum compote?
Yes. Now, nothing says turtles to me like chocolate cake and berry and spice cake and plum. Nothing on earth says turtles.
Not even pizza?
That. No, not even pizza.
Not even like the 4 artists.
I did actually like the cherry meringue cookies and the lychee turtle gummies. They were quite cute.
Yes,
and the decoration was wonderful. I'm kidding, Amy. I'm very much kidding. But this is what I mean by the theme, right? The theme is whatever. Again, you said abstract. It's whatever the artist feels to make it.
Yeah, and
I wanted to see her. You know what I wanted to see her do? I wanted to see her make a showstopper version of that cake she made when she was 10.
Oh my God.
Think about it. She could have made a fucking huge turtle.
I reckon that passed her mind. She's like, no, I have to elevate it. I'll make a 3D.
She could have elevated it by using jelly to make the C like it was an Australian Women's Weekly cookbook. And she could have made a fucking giant turtle scene.
What if the turtle is just one great big profiterole and the shell is a massive amount of crackling across the top? Like, you need a...
And we know she can make good crackling.
Like a fucking big oven. Like an oven the size of the pavilion.
Did this cross your mind? A jumbo. That's... I'm now thinking an entire marine adventure.
Yes, so she's made the giant thing. Now, croissant flippers. Like giant...
We know she can do those.
She can do those. Giant croissant flippers. And
they could have been the sandwiches.
Yes. Now for the head, we need something kind of like rounded with an opening, maybe a giant macaron.
Oh, yes. A giant macaron head with a giant profiterole.
And it's turtle flavoured.
Completely. I'm here for it. I am sold.
Maybe like mock turtle. There's mock turtle soup, isn't there?
There is mock
whatever the
turtle
mock
soup.
is in the mock turtle.
Yeah, because remember, of course, the most famous story of any species becoming extinct was the breed of turtles that were being brought back by the British, the very rare ones from the islands, and they were found to be the most delicious thing on earth. And so the sailors kept cracking them open. They never made it back to England to get scientific named. And every time they went down there, they were like, "Don't eat the turtles." And they got back and there's turtle shells everywhere. And the sailors have just massacred them.
This really makes me feel like reminds me of when my aunts and my sister and I are blackberry picking. And we come back with the blackberries, which, like, did you eat any? It's like, no. And there's, like, blackberries all over our face and clothing. It's like, did you eat those turtles? And there's just, like, some shells just
Picking a turtle bone to pick up and going, "What?"
And someone accidentally bumps a barrel and all these turtle shells fall out.
It was like, that was mentioned on QI, and Alan Davies doing this thing going, this time, I promise. Accidentally slips and falls.
You know, what they do is they send them off with all these cheeses and pates and like Wagyu beef and everything else. You know, all of their favourite foods and a gourmet chef.
They come back and all the food's still there and there's just turtle shells. Now, Aimee did mention that she's never actually made a 3-tiered cake. Now, this takes us back, of course, to last year and our conversation with Anjali, where we were talking about the idea of, well, I mean, if you think about it, with most of these bake-off challenges, who does make a 3-tiered cake just sitting around?
Like, even when you're making a celebration cake for your family, you don't need a 3-tier cake.
No,
because
that's overkill.
Because that's when someone in your family goes, "Oh, it's too much. You shouldn't have brought that much. I don't have any room for you to put it anywhere. You have to take some home now."
And you never want to do that.
No.
There's nothing worse, by the way, than when you take a cake somewhere and someone goes, "Oh, we can't eat all of that cake. You're going to have to take some home." Like, I didn't make the cake for me.
I made it for you.
So, Steve. Now, Steve is, of course, a storyteller, as we know.
Yes.
And so this was sort of very much up Steve's alley in terms of what sort of bakes he does. Now, we talked about this idea of it was perfect choc chip all the way to French patisserie. So choc chip cookie, then orange curd chocolate cake, then Earl Grey cake with the berry jam, to mille-feuille.
Now, something that stuck in my craw with the Earl Grey. He was steeping the Earl Grey, but there was already milk in it. And as you know, you can't steep tea with milk in it. So are you actually getting out any additional flavour by leaving the tea bags in there?
Funny you should say that, because what was Bruno's critique of the Earl Grey cake?
Couldn't taste the tea.
You needed more of the Earl Grey.
And you know how you get that? You boil a kettle. Yes, people, buy an electric kettle. I feel like Uncle Roger telling people to buy a rice cooker. But if you're not in a tea drinking nation like Australia and England or New Zealand, get yourself a cheapo $20 kettle. That'll do. Boil your water in that. Put your tea bag in the cup before you add any milk. Nothing else should be in there. Not even your sugar. No fancy shit. Nothing. Just air. Put your boiling water in that with your tea bag with enough room to add milk if you're a milk drinker. And fucking leave it, all right? Just walk away.
Can I just say my favourite part of that was the clarification of just air. Like there was somebody going, "I've got to vacuum seal the cup now." As he has told me, I must put the tea in there and vacuum seal.
Because it does my head in when I'm reading people going, "Oh, I just microwave the water." Do you know how dangerous it is to microwave water? To bring water to a boiling point in the microwave? Because it doesn't bubble in there. And as soon as you break that surface tension, you can have water explode on you. So buy a fucking kettle. Or at least boil it in a pan on the stove. Not your mug. Don't put the water in the mug and put it on the stove as we read today. Don't do that. Don't pull that shit. So, okay. After you've let your tea bag steep in the water, just the water, then you can put the milk in. Now, you want your tea to look like you've gone to the beach for the day and just got a nice tan. Not a fucking Jersey Shore fake tan. I'm talking about, and not, I've been away to Bali for 6 weeks tan. I'm talking about, it's a beautiful summer's day. You've put on enough sunscreen, and you're just blessed by summer. That's the colour you're going for. Then before you drink it, pop your tea bag out. You can squeeze it into the what is in the tea bag into it, and that stops the drips, and then pop it in the rubbish bin. Or the compost.
So Vincent did a creme caramel.
Fuck you. This is public. I'm helping people.
You are. This is a public service announcement. Anyway, Vincent did a creme caramel. Now, this is important because obviously one of the biggest crimes against baking that has ever been committed was, of course, in the pavilion, and it was when Bruno set creme caramel as a challenge. And again, Bruno's reaction when he came back in, possibly the greatest reaction in Bake Off history, where he walked in and just went, seriously, you guys, as he just looked at puddles. There was nothing but puddles.
This, to me, is the ultimate flex. So this was, 2 seasons ago?
Yep.
The creme caramel
And Vincent
disaster.
goes in and goes, you know what? Watch this. We've talked about this season, as we said, being a season of they couldn't do it, watch me do it.
Yeah.
Vincent with the ultimate flex of creme caramel. By the way, creme caramel, not as a feature.
No.
As a garnish.
Yeah, just on pop it on top.
It's a creme caramel garnish.
And he made a few of them. He didn't just make the one. He made a few. And as part of his story, I like how he's gone kind of metaphorical for it in that, the story was his uncle or dad took him to his grandfather's bakery where they would have custard tarts. Well, it's custard technically. It's a creme caramel. Great. So he's just fancified it and just gone for the metaphorical.
So, Vincent's Bake, I think, is probably, if ever there is a sentence that sums up Vincent's whole season, and probably, again, I feel like this is probably going to end up being the podcast title, Vincent's Journey to Elegance. Is there a more appropriate title for a bake for Vincent, and this bake for Vincent in particular, than Vincent's Journey to Elegance? I think he put together a pineapple pecan banana cake, a pineapple basil yellow cake with a creme caramel topper. And again, it's a tribute to his family, a lot of tribute to his mother in that as well, which was very important to him. And again, he's a few referenced her a few times in terms of the when he put the ingredients, he's like, she'd be there going, no, don't use that, use mine. It was the candied orange peel. Yeah. He's like, yeah, don't use that, use mine. So I loved the fact that getting a little heart on the side of it as well, which is, his little tribute to his family. That creme caramel topper, which is just a flex. And I loved where Anne said, I feel like you've got a very, look, this is a cake designed for a mature palate. To which Vincent goes, oh, I'm mature, honey.
So if I was any more mature, I'd
be in the grave, yeah. I thought that was brilliant. And then they cut from that to Steve, who was talking to his berries at the time, going, you're almost ready to become jam, aren't you excited?
I'd like him to, again, join the Listen to Your Bakes tour for the Talk to Your Bakes section. We've got a few people who talk to their bakes.
A few who listen.
We're just getting a baking conversation.
Act 1, Act 2.
It's not the monologues. It's not the listener logs. It's
a combo.
It's a combo.
Yep. So,
it's a convo-log.
At that point, we cut to everybody sitting outside in the little sort of grotto area where they're sort of
teeming down with rain.
Yes, because it's pissing down again in what must have been the wettest bake-off season in history.
I'm sure that not sure. I hope they had the previous contestants in an actual comfortable area and just brought them out for just a brief...
No. I hope they made them stand under that awning all day.
Oh, man.
But you know why?
I worry about Kylie's shoes.
So what I know. I'm sure that Elena's shoes got ruined by the end of the day. But what I really thought was fascinating, two things. So first of all, I don't think Stephen knew the camera was on him when he was grooving. Because Stephen just... the dance that started...
Yeah.
That was just Stephen having a moment.
Yeah.
I've been in those moments where everyone else was in conversation, everyone else was in deep conversation, and Stephen's in the middle, and he's just dancing.
Do you think it's like the Beatles in Get Back when they put the hidden camera in expecting the coppers to come to try and get this kind of reality, and they just had like a pot plant with...
And George Martin walked in and looked right at the pot plant and just went, points at it and keeps walking.
Yes. Steve goes, was that George Martin?
Exactly.
And Elena's like, no, I don't know that person
But Stephen's dancing was... I loved it because it was just this moment of everyone else is having a conversation And I do that all the time. I've noticed it still. Like, and I'll be in, and at work, I'll be in groups that are having very serious conversations. And I'll suddenly look around and everyone else is in very serious, focused conversations. And I'm sort of standing in the middle, like bopping around or playing with something or dancing a little bit. Like, oh, I should probably not do that. So I'm completely Stephen in that moment. Then we need to go to the one and only Bakeries. Trust Amanda to have a moment in this episode that she wasn't in.
Okay, you talk about that moment and I'll talk about the other thing.
So, Amanda turns around to the camera and goes, it's like picking a favourite child. So obviously I can't do that, but she's going to rock it today.
And there was a moment I'm going, oh no, she's going to be like, I really hoped Amanda was that kind of person that would just name their favourite child. Like, yeah, I actually do like my oldest more than my youngest because my youngest is a pain in the arse.
And she is completely that person.
Yeah. And I was like, yes, no disappointment here. So she named her.
Yes. So at this point, Aimee did abandon her third layer just before she finished. She goes, look, I just don't have time. So let's get to the judging. So, Steve, it was a very gravity-defying cake journey. Now, what they meant by that was, if you watched it, I got why Steve put it in the order he did. But any structural engineers out there would have been weeping. Because he went flat base, very narrow, very broad, really broad angle. The mille-feuille, they said, looked a bit dense, but it cut very nicely and had a very good flavour to it. Needed a bit more filling on the Earl Grey, which we commented on before. The chocolate cake was excellent, and they said the balance between the icing and the cake was great. That icing tasted more like a mousse. They said, unfortunately, though, even though the flavour was good, the cookies were raw.
Yeah, that's not the way the cookie crumbled today.
Yeah, well, it sort of didn't crumble. It was a bit more soggy.
The way the cookie just sat there. And
sags. Aimee.
Yes.
Kyla wanted the cake to be higher, to which Aimee said, well, it was going to be. The top layer was a little bit dry, but they said that plum compote was amazing, but it needed more of that. It was that good. And then Bruno, after the second one, said that we know you know how to make a compote because the second compote was just as good as the first. And they said that the meringues were excellent as well, the flavour in the meringues. Vincent, they said that it was a classical but very modern-looking bake. The yellow cake with the creme caramel was very well balanced, and they said that the creme caramel was really good. And Bruno said it was as good as a creme caramel you would find in Paris. And that is the first time.
Highest praise.
That is the first time that Bruno has ever said that in the pavilion.
I think Bruno went away and had just a quiet moment after that. Like, I think he might have felt a bit bereft, and like a part of his heart had it was irreparably lost. Like it was just irretrievable at that time, 2 years ago.
And what Vincent has done is make him whole.
Yeah. He's gone up with his little paintbrush with the icing and just drawn a little heart in the
gaping wound that was Bruno's chest. Anyway, the cake was excellent, and they said the banana cake had an amazing texture, almost like it was like that carrot cake banana cake cross. So at this point, they go outside, they sort of, all sort of hug and talk, and then they all come inside while it pisses down. And it is Anne's turn to get to announce that the winner of the Great Canadian Baking Show is Vincent.
And Vincent was Lindsay Lohan in Mean Girls at the prom. Just, reminding everyone how wonderful they were, and I was expecting him to just start breaking off pieces of that plate and handing it around like, this is for you, Anne, for just bringing joy and glamour to the tent, and this one's for you, trying to think of names and it's gone out of my head, like Stephen for bringing dance and double words and sassiness to the tent.
And look, it was something he could have done.
But he didn't, and I'm glad he didn't.
He didn't because the plate looks amazing. Yeah. So keep that for yourself.
And it's very helpful when it's in one piece.
Exactly. It's a lot easier to serve cake on. We find that. So overall, and again, it always feels like a cop-out, but legitimately any of the three could have won. And we didn't. Look, we haven't always said that.
You know who the real winners were in this?
There we go.
Us, the audience. Because we got to enjoy it all.
We really did, actually. It was quite worthwhile. We were podcasting something else, which we're not going to mention, when this sort of started, and we were very happy to be able to abandon the hell out of that and move back to this, because this is so much better. Look,
something that COVID, the COVID pandemic has forced me to do is just look at what I spend my time on, and if it doesn't bring me joy, I am turfing the shit out of it. Not turfing the shit out of it, but just going, look, I don't honestly have the energy to put into that, because it takes a lot of heart and soul for us. We work full time. This isn't our full. We don't make money off this.
No, we're in debt on this.
Yeah. That's why we've had to make some changes to the Verjies,
which we'll talk about in a minute.
We'll come to that.
I am going to come to that, so get ready for the double shot.
So, we have to make decisions, and as much as I love entertaining people, it's about decisions that we have to make too, because this feeds our soul as much as it, as we hope we bring a little bit more happiness to the world.
Completely. This is what we absolutely love to do, and especially in Bake Off, and especially Canadian, and everyone is always so good. Again, everyone is always so good. They understand when we go on weird tangents that don't make sense. Everyone just sort of pats us on the head and goes, "You keep running," and goes with us now in a lot of cases. The rare times we've got criticisms, people have listened, and they listen genuinely and understand that we're talking about it from a place of love, not a place of "we think you all suck." Yeah. And just the connections that you can make through this.
Whether it's like people who listen to us or other bakers or production people, everyone's a part of it, and we're all a bit of a family,
It is.
Like
so
distant cousins, some that might live on PEI and name their favourite child.
Very much. So with that in mind, that ends this season.
Send me some lobsters for Christmas.
That ends this season.
Because I presume you can just walk out in the backyard and pick them.
But it doesn't end this episode, because we've got a little bit more to go. So I know it's already long, but I don't care.
Yeah.
First of all, the Holiday Spectacular.
Da, da, da.
We will be podcasting that.
Yes.
So first of all, we will be podcasting that. The second we get hold of it, we will be podcasting that. So keep your ears open for that. I mean, we get to talk about some of our favourite people.
Yes.
A couple of our genuinely favourite people in there, obviously. We don't have favourites, but Jodie's going to kill it.
Look, I love Nonna Gazelle.
We love all of them.
I love Colin.
Sachin's great.
Sachin's great. It's a lot of...
We love everybody, but Jodie's going to kill it. I do name my favourites.
That's true. We have to take the Amanda line on
Vandana, Chris's favourite baker. We've been through that.
Oh, yeah,
anyway.
happy birthday for the other day.
Yes, happy birthday, Vandana. That leads me to the next and the most important announcement, which we said we were going to get to in this episode. We talked about it last week. Ladies and gentlemen, the Verjies are returning.
That's right. Now, this year, it is purely Canadian, because there's no Australian this year.
Because Australian will be starting back very early in the new year.
Oh, so
and
excited.
We want to make sure that we give this series of Canadian its own awards show.
Yep.
It deserves its own awards show. It doesn't need to be lumped in with Australia.
No.
So, this series will get its own awards show. Now, what are the Verjies? The Verjies are Baking's Night of Nights.
Yes.
They are based on the sainted bottle of Verjies.
Yes.
By Australia's own and the judge of the Great Australian Bake Off, Maggie Beer, who of course owns Stately Beer Manor near the Verjies Fields. We talked about those before. Go back and listen to any of our previous Verjies episodes to find out what the hell this is. I do highly recommend going and listening to those. Again, in Canada, certain substances are legal. And while we never actually encourage people, when you're listening to a Verjies,
may as well.
Doesn't hurt. In fact, it could enhance the experience. Our Night of Nights this year, we had to make some decisions. So obviously COVID has seen, in the last few years, we've had the Casino Regina car park, which ended in debtor's prison. We all remember the unpleasantness that happened there.
We started in Dapto Dogs.
Yep, Dapto Dogs for Australia. Tuvalu.
Oh, yeah. Bring it to the Commonwealth.
We obviously did Tuvalu.
Tuvalu, my darling.
Indeed. And then last year, I can't even remember what last year was. It was Hawaii originally, because it was part of the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
But I can't remember.
No, I think that's when we went to Tuvalu.
We did Tuvalu the year before. Oh. I can't even remember where last year was, because last year feels like 8 years ago. So
we'll have to go back and listen to it.
No, I will. We can't remember we travel. We get drunk. Anyway, so this year, we decided that home is where the Verjies are.
Well, that and border issues and
budgets and
trying to return into Australia.
Now, we really wanted to have a spectacular.
Oh,
it is the Night of Nights. We've upped the budget every year. Now, this year, obviously, with COVID and restrictions, it's much harder.
Yeah. And while we would be saving on an audience because, COVID can't have an audience, without a heap of fucking permits and shit. we wanted fireworks.
And we want the quality. We want the quality of the show.
We want to be in a classy location.
So, I am very pleased to announce that this year, the Verjies will be happening New Year's Eve.
Yes, to be brought to you on New Year's Day.
Yep. And you will be getting, obviously, the broadcast on New Year's Day. We'll be doing them live New Year's Eve. Where are we doing them, you might ask? Sydney Harbour.
I know. It's
on a barge.
We're on a barge, motherfuckers.
We've got a barge.
Yep.
So we've got a barge because we wanted fireworks, we wanted music, we wanted a light show. We didn't want to pay for it. We pay our taxes.
Yes.
And we kind of figured, well, we've sort of paid for it.
Absolutely. You know, the barge from the Opera House, obviously AIDA's been on the water.
Exactly.
They've got some second, you know, some pre-used AIDA barges.
Exactly.
Away we go.
We've got it. I'm actually looking at one of the AIDA barges in particular. We'll talk off air.
Excellent.
But also, we wanted somewhere spectacular to launch fireworks off. Now, I'm not really skilled with pyro, and I don't want to blow myself up. What does have a lot of pyro, though, on New Year's Eve? Sydney Harbour Bridge.
Yeah.
So, obviously, the Harbour Bridge in the background, the AIDA floats.
Yeah.
There is so much in store.
Opera House, Kirribilli.
Look, we have so many options.
Cremorne Pool, where I go swimming once a year.
We have so many landmarks. All of the major landmarks are here.
Pinchgut, also known as Fort Denison.
Yep, exactly. So again, all these really important things that all of you Canadians will associate with baking.
Shark Island, no sharks on it.
Yep. No, far more importantly though, again, it gives us an opportunity to have
Cockatoo Island.
It gives us an opportunity to have a massive spectacular, a light show, music, pyro, and it's the true sort of night of nights.
It really is.
That the Verjies deserve.
Yep, you know, we might go across the different, you know, go cruising past the different beaches along Sydney Harbour.
We'll see what happens.
Maybe a bit of Lady Jane's. Or Obelisk. They're the nudist beaches.
Anyway, so the Verjies are coming up, but what we're also going to ask for now is a little bit of help from you. So, is there a category?
Which nudist beach do you want us to go cruise past? No, okay. Bring it back.
Is there a category of award that you would like to see given out, and who would you nominate for the award? Now, again, no award category is too random. No nomination is too random. The Verjies committee would like to hear from you. So feel free to hit us up on any of the social media or any of your social medias with your Verjies Award suggestions.
Yes.
Now, we will take the best ones and make them into the categories, and we will get, obviously, the Verjies crafted so they can be sent to the Canadian bakers as a result.
Like, which bird is the best? Like, which bird deserves a Vergie? Because there are lots of birds in this.
I can't wait to see how we get the award to the birds.
Well, we're going to have seagulls, aren't we?
You think the seagulls are going to share?
They might. I might be able to convince them, bribe them with some chips.
So anyway,
of a potato scallop.
So anyway, the Verjies will be happening.
Take this to Canada, I'll give you a Dagwood dog.
The Verjies will be happening New Year's Eve. We will be sending the broadcast out on New Year's Day, obviously, but please join us for Baking's Night of Nights. Which Canadian will take home which Vergie award? It is the most coveted award in baking. I long to win one myself someday. I need to talk to the committee because the Verjies committee have never yet bestowed an award upon me. Everyone else has won one.
You should have a firm talking to.
Yeah, I need to have
Maybe ask Tennis Family to have a chat to the committee.
I need to have a bit of a chat to the committee.
You may owe Tennis Family something. Maybe some assistance with some lemons.
Yeah, maybe Tennis Family could have a bit of a chat to the committee for me. For those who are unaware, I am the Verjies committee. I am also yet to win a Vergie. So I can't work it out for the life of me, but there we go. Last year, I couldn't even win Best Host on my own podcast. That award went to Bake Canadian Takeoff. So a different podcast even won Best Podcast Host last year because I made sure that Kristie couldn't win and I thought I was the only one who could win, and turns out I was wrong. So anyway, with that, we're going to leave this here. Thank you very much for listening to this series. This is not the end. We will have the Holiday Spectacular. We will have the Verjies. We will be talking to bakers in the next couple of weeks. So keep listening out. We will just be popping episodes up randomly whenever we get around to them. But until next time, I'm still Chris.
And I'm still Kristie.
And we will catch you all later.
And Vincent is the party dude. Bake Off Teenage Nerdy Turtles.
I don't know what that was. but I'm leaving it.